Hey everyone, so let's talk about the facade pattern. Now, the facade pattern has the objective of simplifying the access to complexity. That's it. Facade is actually really easy to learn and implement. You just have to get the idea that you want to simplify the access to complexity. Now, imagine that you go into a restaurant, right? You only care about ordering the food, paying for it, and then receiving the food afterwards, right? You don't really care about the process. You probably don't really care about how they are generating the invoices, how they are cooking the food, things like that. You only care about the food in the end. And that's the idea of the facade. If we draw it out, you have a facade, then you have complexity, and then you have you or the client, which is actually accessing the complexity, right? If we actually make a connection to the restaurant example, you can see how this fits out, right? You would have the restaurant here on the facade part. Actually, the menu and everything would be on the facade. The complexity would be everything that runs behind doors, like cooking the food, generating invoices, and everything else. And then the client would be you, right? Would be you. Now, for the example that I want to give you today, I want to kind of fit it out in a system that actually works like booking, or like you can actually book flights and things like that. Now, imagine that you have flights, right? You have cars, and you have hotels, right? You have hotels. Pretty default of a booking system. You can search for, you want to actually travel, you can search for a destination, then you have flights, cars, and hotels, everything in just one place, right? Now imagine that this actually comes from a third-party system that is outside of your domain, right? And then for the example, what we can actually have is that instead of you, which is the client, directly accessing these third-party services, you can have a facade which would simplify the access to it. So what we can have is a facade, and then you can access the facade, which would be like a middleware or a middleman, which would do all this stuff regarding flights, cars, and hotels. So yeah, let's get straight into coding. Hey, so I have my VS Code open here, and I already mapped out some of the services that we'll need. For example, I have the car rental service here, which returns the types of cars. Would it be economy or luxury, etc., and returns the makes, the model, and the price per day. Then we have the flight services, which returns the flights, be it international or domestic. Then we have the hotel service, which returns the city or resort hotels. Then for each service, I want you to imagine this is actually coming from like a HTTP service, right? I have the data mocked out here, or I'm using fake data just for the sake of the example, because my idea here is that you understand the facade pattern, and I think doing more stuff here would actually bring the complexity of the video up, and this is not my objective. So basically, we already have these three things mapped out, right? The flights, cars, and the hotels, each one in its respective service. Then we have the facade. I already created the facade. I am directly instantiating each service inside of the constructor instead of doing dependency injection. Also, just for the sake of the simplicity of the video, but it will probably be a better idea to inject the dependencies, right? But in this case, I'm just directly instantiating them. So my idea is that we'll have the main file, which would be the client, right? Then we have the facade, which is this guy right here. Then the three services, which are these three guys right here. So we have most of the stuff already mapped out. And for the example, I only want to map out these four methods, which would return the flight details, return the hotel details, the car rental details, and all the data. So let's do the flight details. So we would receive the type that we want to search for. So for example, if I open the flight service here, you can see that we have international and domestic flights. So let's fetch all the flights. So what we can actually do is create a variable called flight, and then from flight service we can actually fetch the flights. So we have all the flights here. Then we only want to return the flights with the type that the user is actually searching for, right? So basically I'm fetching all the flights and then returning the type that the user wants, right? So let's test it out. I have the booking facade here. What we can do is do booking facade dot get flight details. Let's console log it. It's giving me undefined. Let me just see here. Yeah, of course. Let me supply, for example, I want international flights, right? So it's returning the international flights, right? As you can see here, it's returning flight A and flight B, and these are the international flights that we have. Now let's do the same thing for the hotels. So these dot hotel service dot fetch hotels, return hotels dot type, right? And let's also do that for the car rental types. So we just copy and paste that here. Let's say that we wanted the car rental service dot fetch. I think it's called fetch cars. Yeah, fetch cars, car service, and we return the cars with the type. So we can do, let's test out the other types, right? So booking facade dot get. Let's do the hotels. So we have, for example, I think it's let me see here what we have. We have city and resort. So let's say that we want city, and let's fetch the cars. Let's say that we want luxury cars. If I console log it, you can see that it's returning the data correctly. So both the cars and the hotels are being returned correctly. So we have that mapped out. The last thing that I actually want to map is to return all the data. So we would have the flights, we would have the hotels, and we would have the cars, and we just return them all. So flights, let me actually do, yeah, flights, hotels, and the cars. If I console log it, let's see what we have. Booking facade dot get all data. So this is what we have, right? We have all this stuff here. So you can see that we create a facade which makes it easier to connect with these services. And we could have other stuff here. I know that just having these three services might be simple and you could just directly access them, but you could have other logic here. So for example, you could have specific logic to take only flights that have specific attributes and things like that, right? So this is the idea of the facade pattern. You can actually see that you can apply that for a lot of stuff. You will normally use that for interacting with databases, depending on the complexity that you have. But yeah, that's about it. Have a good one.